probably the very last day I'll get it. Anyway, again, thank you for being here to celebrate 15 years with the press. It's nice to see like so many familiar faces and a lot of new faces. So I'm really, really excited, and it means a lot to me. I started to publish translations and work that I find unique, powerful, and that has a strong voice. And in these 15 years, over 200 books have been published. The press grew so much that now I have a staff, so I feel spoiled. It is so nice. It's just not Bill and I anymore. The press is very active. We have a regular reading series, poetry and translation roundtables, a poetry and artist series, pastry with poets, workshops, the Lost Bookshelf bookstore, and Read America Read. For the last 7.5 years, we have been located at the Arts for the Armory in Somerville. And if you need any more information, you can find so much on our website. Tonight, Catherine Sasanov, Martha Greenwald, and I will be reading. And I'm excited about this because 10 years ago, the three of us read together at Pierre Menard Gallery. We all had new books out. And so tonight is very special because it's like a reunion of us three again. And Kath and I go way back. We met in college, and never mind the year. And I'm so happy to see Martha again. And she's here reading, you know, from Kentucky. So our first reader will be Martha Greenwald. She is the winner of the 2020 Yates Poetry Prize. Her book, Other Prohibited Items, was published by the Mississippi Review in 2010. And she's originally from New Jersey, even though now she lives in Kentucky. So I give you Martha.
Hey, everybody. I bet you didn't think you'd hear live from Louisville tonight, but that's what this is. So I wanted to echo first what Gloria was saying. When Gloria and Catherine and I read together at Menard all those years ago, I felt quite candidly that it was the best and the most fun reading I'd ever actually been involved with. And for me, in addition to being there with my friends, I loved that the attendees got my jokes and seemed to understand me in a way that I sometimes don't feel in Kentucky. And it made me think about recently how important it is sometimes to be on your own home turf. I haven't lived in Boston since like half my lifetime ago, but tonight is special because I feel that if only virtually, I'm back, which feels very important now more than ever. So thank you, Gloria and Catherine. I'm going to begin with a poem I read that reading 10 years ago. So Catherine encouraged me to read something older with everything new. So it's the title poem from my book, and I feared it would feel dated, but in the time of COVID, it turns out it's still completely relevant, which I didn't almost realize myself until I was getting ready to do this week. So it's called Other Prohibited Items, and it has a epigraph from what at the time when I wrote it was on the southwest.com carry-on tips. And the epigraph is, try not to overthink these guidelines. Other prohibited items. No to his bassoon and no to their cricket bat. No to your robot, her corkscrew, that hatchet. Good traveler whose children might be overjoyed. Next trip, please procure toys that resemble toys. Policy does not ban pink princess pirate swords, but for security, we confiscate all backstories, though adaptations are few. Item, one wrench from a beloved uncle's workbench, pilfered after his funeral, just before the flight. Lost thanks for his kindnesses, the raucous Christmas pranks. Although we taught his nephew the lathe, relinquished the memento at our checkpoint. Item, rose oil, decanted by monks, 4 ounces in a faceted flaçon. Rare, the passenger whispers, hushed, as if pleading to the lover for whom the secret gift was intended. Well, her kiss may be sublime, but no to the perfume's ounce of excess, and no to the antique draw knife, despite its moonstone handle, studded with marcasite. Again, mid-shift, a woman about to board a red-eye puts her Ziploc on the X-ray conveyor, then flusters when we screen the bag's contents. The bottles warm our gloved hands. Milk rivulets dampen our sleeves. However, her infant waits at the destination, so toss her bottles to the take bin, foremilk already separating from hind milk. No to her umbrella, unruly, floral, sorry, storm phobias never justify hollow finials. No exceptions for the sentimental or exceptional. Our take bins swell with keepsakes decades misplaced, with longings for the heft of a snow globe balanced on a small palm. Look inside. Old Snow White sleeps in a dubious solution. No to her domed sky's blizzard. No to the castle. No to apples. Witches lurk in these woods, and every poisoned pie is gooseberry. So, my father was killed 11 years ago today. And when Gloria and Catherine and I were picking a date for this, I questioned if it was appropriate for me to do this on this day. But the more I thought about it, I realized it was exactly the right date. I'm not a religious person, but poetry is a kind of prayer for me. And so this next poem is a kind of Kaddish, I guess. I'm also discovered today one of my closest friends shares this anniversary in her own way about her mom. So this poem is for Donna too. It's called Off Dwight Road. One deer, two-eyed, old, stares from a neighbor's yard, chewing lawn. All day he stood to monitor our work, until the minivans, stuffed, extruding mold, crouch in the driveway, lowriders bound for a nightmare rally. Skip the tricked out rides. We've packed a half century of saxophones, Lionels, Madras ties. Find the 39 World's Fair ring, greened souvenir to turn my thumb gangrenous. 1,000 feet away, the parkway thrums, frantic with holiday traffic. So much like my father, long-faced, anxious, the deer worries that his cronies, bored back at exit 114, will get brazen, dart into an express lane, enthralled by chrome ignited in November dusk. Who stole father's sense of irony? The Hungarian who watched him catapult across the hood, lodge in the windshield, then fall, smashed on macadam? Does the deer look to me because he's my father? Identity literal. Don't dare question this appearance. Envy the doe who rises from these woods on lovely dancer's legs. Together, they chaw acid yellow leaves and joke a bit. In the middle of New Jersey, the hunters and predators have gone. So herds seek clearings, fields, thickets to rest in and rest upon. The deer claims minor trees behind foreclosed cul-de-sac chateaus. We watch him limp and scuffle toward the curb. Listen, he says, my forelegs are killing me. Jews were not meant to walk on cloven hooves. So this poem is related next poem's related in a sort of a way that I hadn't really anticipated before I put this reading together. And it's also set like in a subdivision. I'm on the homeowners board where I live. And here's minutes that I can't actually write, but I did for a poem. It's new, it's brand new, and it's my take on our current situation that we're all in right now. Minutes, May 2020, Homeowners Association Zoom meeting. So it's just supposed to picture like we're all looking at each other now. Agenda item 3, 19 Oak Hill Court. Feline and stealthy, in a camouflage onesie, the son slinks about their overgrown lot. Miming his yard cat, he glides down the deck rails, hand over hand over hand, then pauses to lick the spring air. The lawn is long and tangled. Grass is taller than the dormant, dusty swings. We wonder about the homeowner who used to mow. Maybe he left or caught the virus and lies there now, fevered in his foreclosed house. Queries? The mother is unresponsive. Our calls go ignored as her son creates a curbside wind farm from rainbow pinwheels guarded by gnomes. Complaints accrue from the next door neighbor, that skinny smoker grandma who struts to the mailbox in her granddaughter's fuchsia short shorts. Thus, the board resolves unanimously to help. Our snow budget sits untouched due to winter's warmth, so why not? Note to management, send the grounds crew. Addendum, the moment the mowers arrived, the resident summoned her son to the deck. White terry cloth pilgrim collar wreathing his neck, she circled around, cutting his hair, locks falling like shards of black glass. He began to croon, off-key nonsense arias, so raucous above those machines, busker for the birds, who declined a tip. This next poem is also brand new, and I guess it's my night for elegies, so here's another one. This is called Friend Request from Deceased Friend, and it's in memoriam of Sam Potter. Stunned awake by the notification's ping, I fumble, squinting at a blurry profile picture, anxious to decipher the muddled disguise of another practical joke. I'm sorry. Bungled at 3 a.m., it took me minutes to recall he'd been gone 2 years, resurrected overnight by a cloner's algorithm that co-opted his lovely face for a scam. The irony unbearable, for at work, we'd nicknamed him Sam the Moral. The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People was always tucked under his right arm, and he chided us if we mocked our department's lousy bosses behind their backs. Be proactive, begin with the end in mind, change your paradigms, try being kind. Married young, his theater career swerved sideways. 4 daughters, few roles besides lead receptionist. Still, he juggled erasers to amuse at admin meetings and sang flawless Astaire to Ginger, the office ficus. Once, fresh from a gig narrating ESL videos, he swabbed down the conference table in slow-mo, over-enunciating beneath pauses for extra effect. Shackleton, Tundra, Antarctica, crew, good ship endurance, encamped, mittens, lifeboats, flow, frostbitten. Next, heel kicks, a jig past copy room left, belting, oh hard tech, oh exploration, as Sam danced backward toward the wide lobby desk. Tipping an invisible fedora, a daily gesture, he directed his own exit, diminuendo. My mates, there's always a Shackleton, always a Shackleton. I'm gonna read 2 more poems. This is a sonnet, and it's the poem that Gloria was referencing that won the 2020 Yeats Prize. I didn't get to go to New York, obviously, to read it to kick off National Poetry Month, so we'll do it now, and maybe next year, we'll see. So it's called Selfie at 50. Whiskered, garlanded, haloed by stars, your image swiped from peacock to hippie, snow bunny to witch, ghost to flirty jaguar. Hold the cell high, filter, angle purposefully, wrist extending farther than anyone believes possible. till the sharp planes of your cheeks and chin reemerge, features no longer bereaved. Childhood, posted, accrues lies and likes. My friend in kitten ears, you haven't aged a bit. Still out wandering with father despite the rainy October night. Monster costume aglow, backlit by wavering opal street lights. No one remains who would remember you like that. Looking upward from a silly mask, waiting to be told you're adored. And I'm going to end with a very, very new poem. I don't usually read new work out loud in public for a long time, but my daughter has dared me to be radically different. And it's an elegy of sorts. It's a family elegy. And my brother's on here, so I can see him. So this is for you too, Art. It's called, with slashes between, Cottonwood / allergy / nostalgia. May, and green seed pods encased in fibrous snow land on the hood, on my windshield, euphemisms for memories. My annual inheritance of crimson bullish eyes and craggy throat caught in the well beneath the wipers. We had 3 acres, a salt brook tiled with fossils, honeysuckle banks, and those trees whose pods carpeted our lawn in lush white filigree. When my father finished yard work and came inside, weeping, mucosal, nostrils raw, he'd crank the AC, mix Bloody Marys, then pop tiny orange dimetanes before retreating, tissues wadded to the cool, dark den. His hacks echoed throughout our house. All was sound, resonant coughs, wheezy sputum, my mother nervous as my brother and I sat near his feet, grass in our hair, emerald filaments, itchy throats, phlegm cast into air adrift in dust motes. Soon we'd all doze off, stoned on antihistamines, waking later from drugged naps like drowsy babies. What is left of our simple bodies? My inflamed sinuses, incessant post-nasal drip. So I gulp and swallow. Relentless, I take whatever I can get. Thank you, everybody.
Okay. So, oh, Martha, you were great.
Thank you.
I am speaking because I am going to introduce Gloria. So our next reader is also our host and the founding editor of Červená Barva Press, Gloria Mindock. And besides being an editor of Cervena, she is also one of the USA editors for a French literary journal, Le Ver Littéraire. She's the author of 5 books of poetry, and her 6th book is coming out this fall from Glasslyre Press. She's been translated and published into 8 languages. I know many of them are Eastern European, which is always near to Gloria's heart. And she was the poet laureate in Somerville in 2017 and 2018. If you'd like more information about Gloria, you can find it at her website, gloriamindock.com. And so, Gloria.
Thank you so much, Kath. So the first 2 poems I'm going to read are about crucifixes. What if God is strict? I am looking for the right flesh with no bleeding, my voice free, hanging from the crucifix, passion from these lips igniting sins to clot my mouth. Crucifixes break every day, are shoved into a drawer, collect dust in a thrift shop. Sometimes Jesus becomes so dusty that cleaning him is a problem, the dust too thick to let him resurrect. When he does, he sneezes. Maybe Jesus, will develop an allergy, a miracle of life. The crosses. We have broken crosses in our drawer. Why are they still there? It is a sin to throw out the symbol of Christ. We would fall from grace. The sacraments received on Sunday would be for nothing. So here they are, buried by papers, screws, ink pens, pennies, a few rubber bands. How sad, Christ defending himself from junk. Where is his heart? Take the crosses out. Let him breathe. Put the pieces in every room out in the open, each one giving testimony to your life. These poems that I'm going to read next are from my forthcoming book called Ash. And I like to write besides about atrocities, bad relationships, and I never write about myself or people I know, so don't worry. But, you know, I've heard so much from clients and people on the street, and Kath can attest to this. Everybody stops and tells me their problems, so I use it for material. So this one is called Baked. With a rolling pin in my hand, I roll your heart out flat. To stop it from beating, the redness of blood turns to wax, sticky while wet. I mix it with flour for consistency. Mind you, you never had this. Skin is added for extra flavor. After cutting up a few veins, my creation is ready to bake. Once out of the oven, all crisp, all beautiful, the door is opened and I throw it out for the birds. Peck away, my friends. Eventually, all men get flown. This next poem is in 3 parts. The first 3 parts are true. The 4th one is made up. And I had a client that no matter how much I told him to stay away from the women, he wouldn't. I worked in the addictions and he didn't really care about his sobriety. It was all women. So he would come back and tell us the funniest stories and we would be doubling over with laughter. He had a way of telling them. So this poem is about that. Plastic. 1. X was only 2 months sober and he was telling everybody he had a date. Despite being told to concentrate on his sobriety and not women, he would not listen. The next day, he said they went out for dinner. Afterwards, she invited him to her place for coffee. When they walked into her apartment, there were dolls sitting at the kitchen table, on the couch, in the bedroom, and even on the toilet. Doll eyes watching him, creepy. He left. We all teased him and said he should have kissed a doll. There would be no heart beating. All he would have to do is keep his lips closed. There would be no feelings. 2. X was sitting in the car with his date, about ready to go to dinner when she said, "Wait, I have to wrap my hair up in tinfoil. It is important for me to communicate with the aliens." X looked at her in disbelief. He took the tinfoil from the box and wrapped his head up with it, waiting for a miracle. 3. It has been a while since X went out on a date. He sat in the car with her as she smacked her gums and then stuck the chewing gum on the dashboard. Then she dug out her lipstick from her purse. X was still focusing on her gum on the dashboard. He looked around her car more closely and saw gum stuck all over the place. He felt a knot in his stomach and was disgusted, got out of the car without saying a word. About a block later, as he was thinking, he reached in his pocket and unwrapped a piece of gum and chewed. 4. The sirens were going off. X knew it was time to get out. His heart was beating quickly. X was scared he would not make it. Heavy black smoke was filling the apartment up. He jumped and realized it was just a dream. Next to him was a woman, young and very pretty. His heart smoldered. He thought, what did I do to deserve such a thing? Just then, a fireman knocked down the door and resuscitated him. There was no girl, just a fire hose through the broken window. Sometimes, X, a flame is just a flame. This next one is called Inhalation. Smoke is everywhere. Down on the floor I crawl. Where is it coming from? To be found out later. Once outside, a fireman helps me, gives me oxygen. Breathe slowly, I'm told. As I lie there in the ambulance, I remember your words. They caused an explosion, this fire. Belongings are smoldering. It was so harsh, even a fire hose could not cool down the remains. All left uncovered, exposed to the elements, frying. In these poems, you'll hear a lot about fires, ashes, destruction, because I thought I have to have something more than just complaining about relationships. So I added fire images into everything. And this one is called Burned Beyond Recognition. Eyes of rescue turned out to be false. Who needs rescue? The thought of that makes me quietly go away from the doorway, running from any sonata you could play. The house became ash from the couch burning, the windows shattering, and glass breaking into air. The fireman's foam, water puts the flames out that engulfed us. Long sentences burned my skin. No bandages helped. Wrap the gauze around your tongue. Choke until a different sound comes from your voice. An urgency of edges, sharp as the mere shards you look into. Barely. Pulled from the fire, unconscious. Skin blackened, filleted, sliding off skin. You burnt me. Barely alive, thinking of how it was between us, laughing at things that only we got. What happened that your flame became destructive? Over and over, flesh burned. You could never catch up with yourself, even when hosed with water. You drowned. No, I will not throw you a life preserver. Light. Surrender to the dark night where the blackness empties into light. It is over between all hearts that yearn. No street lights will guide those searching for a path. Stones have disintegrated. Dirt is mud and weak legs cannot walk. Love is something that only convulses, empties the brain of reason. Hear the sounds from throat. Scream to the black sky, the endless sky, the abyss. All else is prohibited. Give up, close your eyes, and beg for a light kiss. Keep your mouth closed. And the last poem is called Sky. The dark sky attacked my heart with the only thing it knows, lightning. Such a pounding in my chest, despite being half burnt, my valves still beating. When the wind blew into my face, I could not breathe, my gasping loud. Finally, when the rain hit, I was drowning in the drops, saturated. There was little hope for me. When the sun returned, I was gone. The air was crisp, the sky clear, like when someone dies, the emptiness is always there. Thank you. And our next reader is Catherine Sasanov. And she is the author of 3 poetry collections and the libretto for Las Horas de Belén, A Book of Hours, a theater work commissioned by Mabu Mimes. Her essay, The Will, the Woman, and the Archive, can be found in the anthology Slavery's Descendants. Her current research and writing has been funded in great part by a fellowship from the New England Regional Fellowship Consortium for 2019 and 2020. And I give you Catherine.
Thank you so much, Gloria. It's so lovely to read with Gloria and with Martha, and I just want to thank all of you. There are people here who I know, and people I know of, and people who are strangers, but thank you so much, all of you, for coming tonight and supporting us. So, well, the first thing I want to say is that Gloria in 2008 published, I'm here because Gloria in 2008, she and Bill published a chapbook of mine called Tara. And 2 years later, that became my most recent full-length book called Had Slaves, that had to do with my discovery of slaveholding among my Missouri Ozarks ancestors. I'm not going to read from that tonight, but I just want to thank Gloria and Bill again for giving the beginnings of that book a lovely home. So tonight, what I'm going to do is, I decided I'd pull together a group of poems and one prose piece, and all of them kind of fall under the theme of comets, the night, sleep, the stars. One of them will go back to my second book of poems, Las Horas de Belén, A Book of Hours. I'm going to read a poem that has to do with a comet scene there. And I'm going to start with, I've got comets on my mind for 2 reasons. One, my current project has me following an enslaved man and his community in Boston, Charlestown, and South Shore, Massachusetts. And I'm trying to do a lot of sleuthing to find out what happened in his life and what happened in the lives around in his orbit, black, white, enslaved, free, named, unnamed. And one of the things that I had noticed occurred was in 1744, when he was enslaved on the South Shore. The 6th brightest comet in the world showed up that year. And it seemed like shortly afterwards, for both his enslaver, his future enslaver, and for himself, it's like things started to go into motion to fall apart. And eventually this man ends up with his last enslaver, Captain John Codman of Charlestown, and he and 2 other enslaved people in Codman's household poison him. And they're discovered. 2 of them are executed. 1 was Mark, and his body was hung in a gibbet, a man-shaped cage, along the side of Washington Street in Somerville. So this first piece is just a short passage from a prose meditation called The Comet. The Comet, December 18th through February 23rd, 1743 to 1744. Unless the weather was bad, everyone would have seen it. Small, but bright beyond belief. A slash of light later to be deemed the 6th brightest comet in the world. When it first appeared, its tail, about a yard long to appearance, was bent towards the equator. So wrote Reverend David Hall in his diary in the tiny town of Sutton. That was out in central Mass. Inside the quiet of his book, one hears exhilaration in his voice, the science and the awe, the mind thrilling to this blazing star, fat with weeks of sermon fodder. I would not be dismayed at the signs of heaven. Oh, that sinners might fear who live in the neglect of God. And oh, I might so far regard this as a sign to trim my lamp and get ready. Lord, purpose me for thy pleasure, and let thy kingdom come. Reader, it will take a dozen years, but that kingdom finally came. Death is coming into the windows, and the slain are many. Diphtheria, the threaded throat disease, strangling child after child. About 30 have died in the west part of our parish in about half a year, and all but 2 children. Dear Lord, what have they done? The grief in him, the Calvinism, the Lord purposing in spades. Hath not Jesus heard the cry of the lambs? Did Reverend Hall think back on the comet, how he'd prayed, Lord, sanctify so awful a token of an approaching God, who thus hangs out his ensign in the skies? As though the tale he'd noted back in 1744, sundry millions miles long, finally found its fraying end in 1755. Invisible ropes of light winding tight around children's throats. And this next poem is the one from my second book. It's called The Exhalations of the Dead. And this takes place in Mexico City. It's the last poem in the libretto that I had written. And the whole piece, the theater work followed the history of a Catholic sanctuary for single women without means of support called Belém, Bethlehem. It was run in a very prison-like manner, and eventually, by the mid-1800s, was actually a prison and one of the worst Mexico City ever had. The Exhalations of the Dead. Once men were paid to sort out the sky above us. On rooftops, church towers, they stood alone, reading the stars, reading till God's message drowned out in moonlight. Which one of them said, comets are nothing but the exhalations of the dead? Our last breath, a streak of fire and light, then gone. But the dead are always with us, still breathing down our necks, still asking us to write love letters to men who cannot read them. They pay us to put words in their mouths when they don't know what to say. As their evangelistas will never have a place on the edge of the plaza, beneath the arcade where other scribes cater to the needs of the living. We have to walk back past ruins of crumbling colonial palaces to where the city dies out. Inside the abandoned prison of Belém, it will always be night. All the darkness in the world poured into one space, 3 centuries of screams scratched into its walls. You learn to love to run your hands over those voices in the dark because you are the one they call to. Walk into the patio, look up at the stars. No one's left to decipher God's language held just out of reach. The royal cosmographers died centuries ago. And someone's already dismantling Belém. They're dismantling our words with a pickaxe. Before I go on reading, I'm going to disappear a moment and turn on a lamp. The problem with my room with a lamp is everything, including I, becomes red, but I'm going to be the slowly disappearing poet otherwise. So I'll be right back. All right, things you learn. So I'm going to read 3 more poems. And I had forgotten that Martha's title poem to her book had a snow globe in it. And actually one of the things that connects these next 2 poems is the scenes take place in a snow globe. In one case, they're both persona poems. They're both prose poems. In one case, the voice is of Paul Revere on his famed Midnight Ride. And in the other poem, it is of a man who, just a guy like the rest of us, in this case, a blacksmith, church deacon, First Congregational Church in Charlestown. And when Captain Codman dies, Michael Brigden ends up being both a witness at the autopsy, but also an appraiser of Codman's goods for the probate file. Snow Globe, April 18th, 1775, Revere speaks. In an atmosphere deadly to pets when licked off their fur, how'd I get trapped in this late spring storm? Stripped of all landscape, frozen on my horse, negotiating every bored tourist shaken squall. Bone chips, porcelain bits, sawdust, sand, gold foil soap flakes, a flurry of plastic. The secret of the snow globe? Whatever slows snow's descent. On cold breath, I wait, breathing hard. It reminds me, did you hear the one about the child thinking a fire kindled in his mouth? He runs to his master, showing him the smoke. What ends in tears through smears of fingerprints, the world forever viewed through oily whorls. That master fed a deeper fire with his slap. Did that child grow into the hangman forever marking my road? Who'll build a dome big enough for us both? For 2 British soldiers, their horses, moonlight, and a tree. The horse beneath me already exhausted. The horse beneath me already extinct. Snow Globe, Autopsy and Appraisal. Michael Brigden speaks. Don't shake, hold your breath. Mica crunches beneath my feet. I'm drowning in the dead man's daughter's tears, burning in the dry eyes of his slaves. The coroner leans in, makes his cut. Grit of potter's lead whirls up, poison mixed with blood. In a month, I'm deep in the guts of the dead man's house. I decide what's worth, how much. In his garret richly stocked with slaves, night falls, and each lays down in their own Negro bed. In a mansion overrun with chairs, did he ever think to bring one up? Poison sleeps behind the window frames. And this is my last poem. And this one moves from the mid-1700s up to the 20th century and a suburb of St. Louis, Missouri, and the home of my sister and her husband. My blonde and blue-eyed nephew sleeps, clutching a rubber shark. Its great white gut digesting air, dreaming nightmare. Slave ships edged in nets, their sailors' hull, fish caught trying to throw themselves into the sea. Men, men, O fishers of the great white locked in a small boy's arms, dreams blood. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kath. And again, thank you, Martha and Kath, for reading tonight. So could we give Kath and Martha another round, please? Yay, you guys.
And Gloria.
Gloria.
That's okay. And I just want to thank everyone for coming out tonight to hear us and to celebrate, you know, the press. It means so much to me, and I am so touched by it. And I just want to say, you know, tomorrow we have more Červená Barva Press authors reading: Matthew Hamilton, Renuka Raghaven, John Stanazy, and Renuka will read poems by Barbara Malloy. So I hope you will join us for that. And a huge thank you to all the Cervena staff that are here tonight listening. I really appreciate it, and I love their help. And it all started with Bill and I, and Bill's actually here tonight too. So I'm just really thrilled. And so thank you so much, everybody. And that is it.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, everyone.
Thank you.
Fabulous reading.
Thank you.
Fabulous.
Hello, everybody.
Thank you very much. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
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 Bye.